Bloodwolf Arts Studio. Unleash the artist within.
Welcome to Bloodwolf Arts Studio, and I'm your host, Mr. Moonlight. So today I'm talking about my next poem in my series, my collection of poetry, The Seasons of Life, Volume 1, Autumn. And this one was written on November 19th, 2011, and this is moving into the tail end of my last year of high school. Um, and with all the changes going on in my life, um, at this time, there's a lot of things shifting, and this one is titled The Scholar. And this one was really just a lot of reflecting on my own type of curiosities, because it seemed like my entire life I was always asking questions, like incessantly, like excessively. Like I always had to know why. A very curious mind, and I've always had a very curious mind that way. Um, Even to the extent of just getting stuck in my head a lot, which I've shared in some of my previous poems of this tendency. But I feel like in this particular instance, I remember there being a lot of wondering because here I am. Um, as far as I remember, then I was the first one in my family to be graduating high school, that actually finished school because my mom insisted on it. Um, and I loved school. It was something that I realized was, I don't know, it was kind of like my safe place, I guess. I just loved learning more and more and more and more, because it kept me distracted and just um, filled my insatiable sense of curiosity and adventure. Um, but more than that, then it was wondering about where this would all end. My world had just been shaken up a lot, and it was pushing me now to ask questions that I didn't really want to ask. My mom's leaving, and at that point, I don't think I knew exactly when she planned to, but just that she was. And I don't remember if she knew at this point, or if I knew at this point, if she was going to be taking my sisters with her, which she was, and she did. Um, and my mind was really wondering about, um, maybe I asked too many questions because I really felt like I asked too many questions. Um, that was something I really wondered a lot. Um, and now here I am asking more questions, and it's mentioned in the poem in one of the lines, um, that this would be the end of me, that me having to ask questions, and and now at this point being pushed to ask questions about what I believed, what I stood for, that it would be my own undoing. And there was a bit of fear in there also because in the DCCS or the order, then you don't ask questions. I mean, it's like you're taught to ask questions, but then it's like you can't ask the wrong questions. Like you can't question the leaderships. You can't question things. Like you can question, like it's, I guess it's that dichotomy. It's like you can question things, but you're only allowed to ask certain questions because if you ask the wrong questions, then you start getting in trouble, and you kind of get the equivalent of, well, just because I said so. Like that's the equivalent of the responses you get. And really, I was being pushed to ask a lot of questions in my foundation now that I was really concerned that I didn't want to know the answers to. Um, and coupled with the fact of going to school and just loving to learn, I wondered if there was something wrong with wanting to learn more. That wanting to know more and to know the reasons why things are done the way that they are was going to be my undoing. And that somehow knowing too much, and there's a line in the poem that says, knowing too much about my doings and what my doing brings. And it's almost like I was also questioning, and I suppose some part of me question this is, why does God do things the way that he does? And of course, this was a lot of stuff starting to be called into question about why things are done the way that they are. And there was a time coming, and you see it, so my poems coming up, um, that this led into, about why I was given answers and guidance by God that I was. And I just wanted to know why God was doing this, why God was doing that, why this was happening to me, why my life was starting to fall apart, um, what I could have done about it. And I suppose a part of me blamed myself and my life falling apart because I wouldn't stop asking questions, because I had to know why. And I started to associate learning new things with the reason why my life was now becoming a living hell and why everything was falling apart. And I started to really hate how much I wanted to learn more. I started to hate how curious I was. I started to hate my own curiosity, um, because I'm like, if I would just sit down and shut up and do what I'm told and just stop being curious, then maybe my life would stop falling apart. Maybe I would feel accepted. Maybe I'd feel like I belong somewhere if I would just stop asking questions. Because truly, like, the questions I found myself asking more than anything, especially because I loved like Sunday school and church and all that stuff. Like, I needed to have that understanding of why God does things the way that he does, and learning to be a spiritual authority to lead a family someday, and really just, like, I felt like I couldn't help but be curious. And now here I was being like, well, this seems to be my undoing, um, because I because I'm the biggest thing I asked questions about was why God does things the way that God does, questioning God, questioning my beliefs, and especially, I suppose, especially at this time, I wondered, um, about those beliefs and what they were standing on, really. Like, what are my beliefs actually standing on? Because my life's falling apart, and so there must be something wrong with my beliefs, and so I've got to ask questions. And it's not okay to ask questions. It's not okay to question God, which is what I felt like I was doing. And I'm like, this isn't okay. And yet I seem to be compelled to, because I can't figure out why things are the way that they are, why things aren't working out, why I'm not getting married. It's like, I'm 19 years old, I should be getting married. um, why nothing, it was just like, why nothing in my life seemed to work out. It's like I would feel like I would get guidance and direction from God, and then nothing would work out. And so I'm already asking questions, and I'm like, okay, maybe I'm asking too many questions, and that's the problem. I don't just sit down and shut up and just do what I'm told. I don't just take the answers I'm given, and I'm never satisfied. I'm never satisfied. And now I'm like, well, this is my whole problem, is I'm never satisfied with the answers I'm given, and it's never enough. And I suppose also, um, with asking these questions being my downfall, um, it was digging into my foundations, and as I'm tearing into my own foundations of my own belief systems, I'm now scared more than ever that I'm going to be deceived by the world outside of the order, outside of the DCCS, that I'm going to be deceived, and I shouldn't be questioning these things. I shouldn't be questioning God. I shouldn't be questioning, um, things, because I'm going to be deceived. But ultimately, as expressed in the poem, that a part of me just resigned to something I had learned growing up, was that the truth always wins in the end. And that was something I really trusted in. That was one of the things that kind of counterbalanced it for me, because I'm like, well, I've always been taught that the truth will always win in the end. And so, like, that must be true. And I trusted in that, at least. and I kind of counterbalanced the asking questions thing. Even though it's tearing my life apart, I'm like, well, the truth is the truth is the truth. And so ultimately, it's like, no matter what I ask, it's like, it's going to lead me to the truth. Because that was like, that's something that was in our Sunday school lessons. That was the reason why the founder of the DCCS got to where they were, because um, they stood their ground, and they asked questions, and they challenged things. Um, when the LDS organization started to go astray from the fundamental doctrines of LDS doctrines, then it was always hyper fixated. It's like, we are in search of the truth. And that was what Charles Kingston and Eldon Kingston were in search of, and all the people that were there at the founding of the DCCS, was, we are in search of truth. And so that was one of my comforting things. I'm like, well, the truth is the truth. Then that counterbalanced all this thing about why I'm asking questions. But at the same time, of course, now these questions are tearing my whole life apart. And so here I am balancing it out, struggling because I can't make sense of this. And the reality of this poem being titled The Scholar is, I am the scholar. I am the one who seeks to ask questions. And that's my identity, which it really was. My identity growing up is, I was always seen as like the smart one in school. Like, I was always at the top of my class. Like, I loved school. People, like my fellow classmates, cousins and stuff, like, they thought I was crazy because I loved school. And so here I am, um, like a detective. I am the scholar in this story, in this poem. And this poem also was a little interesting because I questioned my own format of this poem, because like around this time when I was writing a lot of these poems, I was experimenting with a lot of different writing styles, and this one was very different because um, my poems, like, were lines were like, you know, very short, but this one, the lines are very lengthy. It's like it's full sentences, like they rhyme, but it felt kind of clunky, and so I questioned even writing this poem how I did. I let it sit. I'm like, you know what? I'm experimenting with a new style, despite the fact that I felt like I did not like the answers that I was going to be forced to get by asking questions. Ultimately, this poem was a sort of attempting to come to terms with the larger picture. Um, and I suppose with my foundations crumbling, to connect to something much larger than myself. It's like, okay, my beliefs are crumbling. It's my fault that our family's falling apart. Something I did. Um, Asked too many questions, and I suppose possibly rationalizing, like, well, that's probably how I contributed to this. Is I'm just too wrapped up in education and learning, and so here I am attempting to connect to something so much larger than myself to make sense of my world falling apart by asking questions and digging into knowledge and wisdom, and I guess asking the questions that you're not supposed to ask, um, which quite frankly has been the story of my life, as I reflect back on that. And so this was a lot of stuff just coming up this to the surface here with everything being shaken as it was. And I suppose as a fun side note, there was a school project I wrote at the time where I was supposed to write a story um, based on the Canterbury Tales. And I loved it because the assignment was you had to write the poetry style, or the writing style was every other line rhymed and had to have a certain amount of syllables. And my teacher at the time told me, he's like, you don't have to write it like that. It's like, because they realized how challenging that can be. But for me, it was just a breeze. You're supposed to write a story about characters going on an adventure, some kind of trip. And then during the trip, then each of the characters tell a story. And every single part of that entire story, including the stories within the story that the characters tell, is supposed to be rhyming in a set pattern with certain syllables. And I had written this story, and it's still not complete. I've thought about going back and completing it at some point, but the characters in my story were based on people I knew. And there's one character in the story that he's the scholar, and he was based on myself. And so if I ever post that at some point, then or publish it, because I actually might, because it's a lot of fun. But that's who that's referencing to. I at some point I might talk about who the other characters are. That's kind of a little side tangent, but just made me think of that because that was something also going on around at the time, that was how I identified myself in my life. Like that was my status. I am the scholar. I am the one who wants to learn more and to dig in and to learn more, even if it causes problems, because for some reason I have an insatiable curiosity, and that just seems to be my lot in life. I just can't seem to stop asking questions, even to my own detriment. Even when my life's falling apart, I can't seem to stop. And as much as that seems to be contributing to my life falling apart, um, this just seems to be a part of who I am, asking questions and never being satisfied until I understand the how and the why behind everything. And so that's the epitome of this poem and the kind of stuff I was struggling with. Again, titled The Scholar. So um, stay tuned for The Scholar reading after this in just a minute. And you can look down in the description for a copy of my books. I'll have a link to them. My website is finished, and that's also going to be linked down there. And I was able to get the TikTok working again, so my videos are posting there again. And on there, it's just the poems, um, not all this extra stuff. And so, like the video, subscribe to my channel, follow me on all my platforms, Blood Wolf Arts Studio on Facebook and YouTube, and follow me across all my platforms. You'll under the handle name Mr. Moonlight Rhyme. You can find me on TikTok under that name. So thank you for tuning in, and welcome to my side of the moon.
The Scholar by Aaron Brown. As I sat amongst the books piled in an old dusty room, I pondered and thought of dreams of an educated doom. A doom, as fate would have it, brought by knowing too much things about my place, about my doings, and what my doing brings. Truly, scholars are most broken among souls of this world. Broken for lack of knowing cause of mysteries unfurled, and how secrets are better left so, unless trained in ways of not shouting or whispering thoughts set to consume days. Unknown to the scholar, trained to seek and to find out why, he by nature's chance stumbles upon worlds of prying eyes that seek to ravage and destroy thoughts of joy and merriment, seeing life as some frivolous old toy. Yes, truly the scholar's mind is unwound, of finding such ways of thinking that bring endless wonder, yet also crutch the naive mind. Knowing the unknown is better left for those prepared to receive, with the sure truth of something more.